Had a user state that they had their G1 and were trying to boot off of a NVMe drive that was actually a clone of another Windows bootable. And so, but they said that the system would not boot from it. So what I thought I'd do is do a little experimentation, see if I can get the same issue, see if there's a resolution. I've seen some mention about it, about the small form factor version, but I'm not sure about the mini. So we'll check a couple things out. What I did is I installed or made bootable using this little guy, the Win 10 XPE. So I'm going to try to boot from it first using USB. And if that works and it looks okay, then I'm going to open up this guy and put in the NVMe. Probably take out the SATA SSD that's in here and just make it really clean, and let's see what we get up. All right, it booted quite nicely and went right in. I was even able to run the browser. I went on and actually checked to see if there was a newer BIOS for the G1, but there isn't. So I think what we'll do now is we'll just pull this drive out and see if we can boot from it. Of course, HP doesn't make it easy for you. What I'm going to have to do is take out the drives. I think the drive caddy. Done this before. It's been a little rusty. Disconnect some of the SATA here. This whole thing has to come out because the drive sits right underneath here where the fan is. So we'll give that. I have other videos that go more into depth so that you can watch those. I just wanted to just kind of go over the fact that, you know, all these things do have to be removed. Okay, got the heat sink and the fan over here, as you can see. Okay, yeah, I know this is there's a lot of thermal paste. That was from back when. I'm not going to put on more, but the NVMe drive is going to go right connected in here and connect down. It does take the 2280 standard one, so I'm going to stick that guy in. I was really tempted to leave this guy in the fan on the side because it is a little tricky getting back in, but I don't want to burn something out, mess up the CPU, whatever it is. I just want to, but I will leave out all the drive stuff because that's not really needed at this point. Especially because I specifically don't want to be booting from anything else. All I want to try to boot from is that NVMe. So I'm going to hook up the power and let's see what we've got. Okay, tried a couple things in terms of how to set up the G1. The BIOS needs to be upgraded so that it can know how to boot NVMe drives. And at first I thought I would try using the Win 10 XPE environment. Problem with that is that it just wouldn't load the drivers that are needed in order to go through the steps that are outlined on this website. So instead what I did is I created something called Windows to Go. You can create a disk. It's essentially just running Windows off of a thumb drive. You can do it using Rufus. We'll create one. There's other products out there. You can Google it. May in the future have something that talks about it. Now, if you have a case where you've got you can actually boot in on your G1, maybe on a SATA drive that's got Windows 10 or 11, then you could also do it on there too. But what you're looking at right now is where I've booted on Windows 10 Pro with Windows to Go. So what we're going to need to do is follow the steps, install some stuff. Thankfully, I've already tried this one time and it actually did work. But at the same time, there are some, I wouldn't call them pitfalls, but just things to look out for, especially because when you go to the particular page they're going to show you, it mainly talks about the small form factor, the SFF. It does mention the mini, and it does talk about where you need to put the what was I going to say, the jumper for the FOB. But beyond that, and the steps are the same, but your output's going to look different. It's going to give some, looks to be like error messages, but it's really not, and it's perfectly fine. So now, before we begin the process of modifying the BIOS, we want to make sure that that you're on the latest, and so that way, because the instructions that I'm giving today are all based on version 2.33. If you do a search for EliteDesk 800 G1 Mini support, click on here, come to this screen, software and drivers, identify, we're on Windows 10 in our particular case, 64. Now, a couple things check here. Right here, this is going to upgrade you to 2.33. I'm already at 2.33, but you'd want to download this and run. It most likely is going to reboot your machine. You're going to have to let it, process it. If you're not on 2.33 already, it will actually tell you what version you're currently at. The other one you want to go down to is update this Intel Corporate Management Engine. Make sure that that's all up to date too. You don't have to worry about these other ones because they're from other different types of environments. So once you have that, then you'll be set to go. The other thing I do want to caution you about, and it does warn you on the website, is that you do have the ability to make your machine unusable if you do the steps incorrectly, if there's something else going on, the power goes out, whichever it might be. So proceed with caution. I can say that I've done this now 3 times. I changed the BIOS twice, and I even changed it back to the original one. That's why you'll see later there's a step where we create a backup.bin. I would suggest copying that off somewhere. That way you have a backup if you need to, if you decide that you don't want to be able to boot NVMe drives, or you need to do something else, it's good to do. That's what I ended up doing when I had to go back and refilm some of this. So just a word of caution. Proceed, make sure follow everything, and that hopefully also you're not doing this on a critical machine, so that if something does go awry, you have some time to experiment with other fixes. Let's do a search. Let's find this guy. And we want to go onto this guy's site here. We want to scroll down, and we're going to be installing some software. Okay, word of caution. I just spent a whole hour trying to figure out why this Intel Management Engine components wouldn't install. And it turns out it's because I jumped ahead and put the jumper onto the that FOB connector. And if you do that, then it doesn't install certain drivers onto your system, and so it won't allow it to go. So follow the directions. First, let's do the installing the components, and we'll do it step by step. Don't be thrown off by the fact that this is saying it's for the tower. It works for both. Okay. And next, it's going to extract it. And after a couple seconds, it'll come up with the installer. So what I was seeing before is that it would say that it doesn't support this platform. So now we can go through and run it. And I spent all this time trying to install .NET and updating the Windows, and it was just a silly jumper that I had to remove. Sometimes it's the simple stuff, especially because I knew everything worked, and I couldn't imagine that there was a difference between Windows Home and Windows Pro, and I want to use Windows Pro because then I can remote desktop into it and I can capture what's going on instead of trying to use the camera. Okay, successfully, perfect. Okay, now let's go back. The next one is these engine tools, and that's just a zip file. Okay, and then also a NVMe driver. That's going to just get downloaded. And then finally this UEFI tool. Use this one, which is direct link to that version. All right. And then what I've done then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a working folder, all the various files that we're going to need. So I just created a quick folder called working off of the root of C. So first I'm going to open up this Intel ME and drag that over. And I'm going to open up that one. The folder we're interested in is called this Flash Programming Tool, and then Win64. So we're going to throw the FFS into there, and then we're going to open up this UEFI tool and also throw that in there. Okay. Now if we go back to the instructions, so now what we want to do is we want to shut down our machine and we want to set that jumper, and then we can come back. Okay, with the power off and the plug taken away, what we're going to do is we're going to put a jumper right on this little guy here. You may be able to see something that says FDO. So we need to put a jumper across here that will allow us to get in and do some stuff into the BIOS. Okay, you probably can see it there. It's a little hard to see because it's black, but I had some jumpers that I'd pulled off from various units, and that allowed me, and then I just used some needle nose to kind of get them down there. Now I can plug in and boot back in and continue the process. Okay, now we've rebooted after setting the jumper. What we need to do now is we need to open up a command window as admin. So what we want to do is do a search for CMD, right click, run as administrator, yes. Okay, we want to find that working folder. We want to go into the Intel and then Flash programming tool, as it says here, programming tool, and then Win 64. Okay, it says here the first thing we want to do is we want to back up the current BIOS because we're going to be modifying it. So we'll copy, paste it. Oop, maybe just one time would be good. Backup bin. Okay, now we've got our backup. Now we want to modify it, and we're going to be injecting this the NVMe driver into it. So what we can do is we can just run the UFI tool, launch it. Pop up here. We want to do File, Open Image File. And since it's already in the folder, we can say Open. Now, you'll notice here you're getting this invalid checksum, so forth. They're not talking about it on there. You notice this has Intel image, this has UEFI image. Others have mentioned the same thing, but they still went ahead and everything still worked. So what we want to do is we're going to take, just like it has in here, we're going to open this up and we're going to look for this section here that talks about the DX driver, the CD84. So let's make this a little bigger so we can see all of the info. Okay, so we come down to, scroll down a bit, almost to the bottom of there. There it is, right there. Okay. And then it says to right-click on the CSP lib and do a insert after. So we're going to right-click and insert after. We're going to find that NVMe file. I'm going to say OK. You'll notice it it did the insert. If we look at there, we've got the free form, so it inserted it. If we come down here, it looks exactly like they had it, where you've got the 0DF at the bottom. You've got the insert, okay? Now we want to go up and say File, Save Image File. And we're going to call it NVME.bin. Okay, we don't need to open the reconstructed file, say no. We can exit out of this. And now do the same thing. This is where it's actually going to write it. So save. Let me scroll down a little bit. You'll notice what this looks like here, and then what we're going to see when we run it. Okay. Good. FPT operation passed. And at this point, what we can do is again, shut down the machine. Now we can remove the jumper, and if all goes well, we should be booting into our NVMe drive. Well, here we're inside of our booted NVMe. I guess maybe the particular NVMe isn't the fastest. I tried setting the UEFI for the option boot. That didn't seem to make a difference. I mean, I'm sure with faster ones, that's still pretty good. I mean, that's faster than if you had a straight SATA drive. So that's not too bad. But here we are booted, and now should be able to boot normal Windows and other environments without a problem.